Do you want to live a life of freedom and adventure? Are you wanting more than the daily grind? Me too. Welcome to the Emma Lovell Show, a place where we talk about living a life you love now. I'm your host, Emma Lovell, and my number one value is freedom. I've spent the last 14 years running a business and traveling the world, and now I take my husband and toddler along for the adventure too. It's possible, and I know you can create a life doing what you truly love as well. This podcast will inspire, motivate, and encourage you to go after your dreams, to create a life you love and to live it now, not wait for retirement or someday in the future. I'll be sharing episodes weekly about how I harmonize business, travel, and self-care. I'll also bring on incredible guests to share their journeys, the wins, the challenges, and how they're creating a life they love. Let's jump in and get dreaming. This is a space for you to manifest a life you love. I would like to acknowledge and recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of this place, now known as Australia. I am grateful for the continuing care of the land, waterways and skies where I work, live, listen, learn and play. From here on Yugambeh country and from wherever you are listening, I pay my respects to the elders past and present. Welcome to the podcast today. I have a fabulous guest with us. I have Tamara Protassow with us. And I must say, before you do your introduction, fabulous Tamara, it is 11:11. So I just wanted
Amazing. Hooray.
tell us a little bit more in your words about who you are.
Okay, so I'm a creativity mentor and writing coach. I initially began editing books, nonfiction for people. I've done that for 14, 15 years. And over time, I began coaching authors into finishing their manuscripts because you can't edit a manuscript that's not finished. And then I realized I was working more and more with women who hadn't finished their manuscript or hadn't even started their book yet. And as I worked more with them, it became about what internal thing is actually stopping people from being creative, expressing themselves, suppressing their voices. And really, it comes down to patriarchy and capitalism. So now I work with that lens on creativity.
I love it. So a creativity mentor and a guide and fabulous. And how did we come to know one another?
Ooh, I feel like I've known you without meeting you for a while. I think we've been in the same orbits online in those little spaces. But in particular, we met in Kerry Rowett's mastermind. We're both still members of that and just formed this really beautiful connection.
Yes, and you are a support in there, which is fantastic. And
Yep.
so just really appreciated your support and your extra guidance and some private messages just to feel sort of seen, especially when you're first starting. I think I always take a few little bit to get into it. And then I always remember that I'm like, so you join this thing and there's all this content and there's calls. And so you're sort of coming on and also sometimes you're coming into something where people may already have a connection. I don't really worry too much about that, but you just sort of, I think I'm always just like, I do leap generally, but sometimes I'm just finding my way. But I always remember I get more when I'm interacting. And so
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
show up.
100%.
You got to show up. And so, yeah, and then I probably got to know you more because I was watching the older calls. So you've been in there for 6 months longer. So I'm watching these calls. So some of the ladies I sort of learnt more about or saw how they interacted before we actually connected. And so it's nice. You get to know someone without, I guess, not osmosis, but through.
Yeah, just familiarity, really. And I mean, I do love that supporting role that I'm in there because I have as one of my top 3 SMAs, sacred money type archetypes is connector. So I just really value connecting with people and getting to know them and kind of that looking after as well. I don't have such a strong nurturer archetype, but I think that connector really does get to shine in those ways.
Yeah, bringing people together and it shows up in the connector wants to take care of people, but as a collective, probably.
Yeah.
And
And just also like in that role, I'm connecting people with resources. I'm connecting people with, if Kerry hasn't seen their messages, I'm connecting them with her. Like it's very connector focused. So that really soothes that part of me. I get to I get to do that, and then I get to go off and do my own work too. So that's really nice.
Your own group. So then you're
Mm.
bringing, sometimes I think sometimes it's good doing something with someone else's program or in something and you say, and then, oh, I can share that with, they very
Yeah.
cross-pollinate and co-create together. But I think
Yeah.
where we got to really know each other, and I'm so grateful to you, is that you suggested I was struggling with one of my retreats. It just wasn't taking off or lifting, and I had this place, and I was like, I think I shared in there that I was like, do I just go by myself or like what do
Mhm.
I do with this thing? And I think part of it that's challenging for me is that I run a business which promotes profitable retreats and I teach people how to do profitable retreats. And then I was staring down the barrel of probably my first being locked in and not being able to get out and it just felt very weird. I think some people were like, oh, I love the idea of going there by myself. And I think you even said
Mhm.
that once you got to the house, you're like, it's
Yeah.
not a space it's a farm, it's an entire farm, and being in a big 4 bedroom house by yourself. And for
Mm.
me, I travel all the time. I didn't need, I didn't
Yeah,
need to go
yeah.
away to be by myself again. It was for me, it's a shared thing. Anyway, so you suggested to pop it in the group.
Mm.
And then sort of said, I'd like to come.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah.
opened up this whole new opportunity and it morphed into something different. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yes, it's one of my favorite memories of the year, really. Just kind of because I remember that post and you were like, oh, this isn't really working and people aren't booking in. And why? Why? People like, because, people book in with you. They do your retreats and all of that. And so to have this one that was just like, nope, quiet. It's like, okay, well, where's the purpose behind that? What actually wants to happen here? What is energetically behind that? And just that thing of, well, there's a mastermind of people who've all met online and have been in here in this online space for months, and there's this opportunity to maybe, if people can get away and make it happen, to see each other and spend some time in real life together. And it was really lovely of Kerry to sort of let that, unfold in the group and let you kind of go, okay, well, I'm opening it up. If anyone wants to, you know, this is
Available.
the deal. It's available. If you can get yourself there, like, let's do it. And so a few of us came and, a beautiful friend of yours who's not in the mastermind came along too. And it was just a really lovely time. And I think the people who needed to be there managed to get themselves there, and it was so nice. For
Yeah.
me, I was in a position where I my children are grown up. They've finished high school. One's almost finished uni, and I was in that position of, I'd prepared myself for that. I'd made sure I had interests. I'd made sure I had things to do, but I still had this inquiry that I needed to do on the inside of me to kind of find out who the hell I was after all of that parenting and really the intense bit. Parenting doesn't stop.
No.
But the intense kind of school runs and you know, all of that, it's not there anymore. And there was just this space, and I really appreciated having that space to go to the farm and just take a couple of days to find out what was in that space because it felt like a really, potent space. I just had no idea what was in there.
Well, and you and I were both also connected to Denise Duffield Thomas, so it was
Mm,
such a fun, the way things all layer, and you'd actually worked with Denise on her book,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so had heard a lot about the Rose Farm and hadn't been. I ended up going and catching up with Denise during those few days as well. Um, but the funny sort of thing for me was the Rose Farm, sometimes places force you into something.
Mm,
And I had been trying to force something to happen there when the call for me was really that I had an amazing experience as an attendee. Then I'd hosted a retreat there in April and it had gone very well.
mm,
However, I really wanted to, but there was some challenges as they are sometimes on retreats, and I just sort of felt like I needed a different memory. And so then I might go and host another one, but what I really wanted was just to be there. And it
Yeah.
just forced me, it still took me another 2 days of being there to go like, I just was like, oh, I'm going to record this and I'm going to do this. And then you and I did a photo shoot, which was very fun. We took photos and videos of
We
each other, which
did.
we've got to use some more of that content because it was very fun. I can use that now that we're doing this podcast. And put that
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. I was just like, oh, hang on. We can use that for this. That's
Yes,
great.
our beautiful dresses and just
We
frolicked
got
about the
dressed up.
roses, but which
Mm.
was fun because it was just fun and free and no agenda really and just helping each other. But any structured work I was trying to do just
Mhm.
was not coming, and I just found myself like I didn't even want to read. I was just sitting on the
Mhm.
couch, just kind of staring into the abyss,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, maybe this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like
That's
maybe
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because I remember kind of clearing out some work before I went because I was like, normally I would bring some work with me, but I'm trying to break that habit for myself because I'm like, yeah, you know, I've just found that I'm pretty good at structuring my time now so that I get some free time, in my days, and that feels very lucky, but it's very intentional. So when I do, go away, I'm like, okay, is this a working or is this a non-working sort of time for me? And I decided that the Rose Farm was a not working, just being in my own energy, figuring out what was there. And I remember sort of sitting down and you going, right, I'm going to do some work. And we were both in that lounge area, which is so beautiful. And you were like, I'm going to do some work. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And you were like, do you have work to do? And I was like, no. For once in my life, I got it done before I left. So, I was okay. And you're like, oh, okay, what are you going to do? And I was like, I think I'm just going to sit here, which for me, I am ADHD. I'm always on the go. There's always something that I kind of need to do. And it was really odd because I got that same vibe. I was like, I am actually just going to sit here. And I was like, wow, okay, okay. And I was quite unsettled by it as well because I was like, I'm just normally like, oh no, I'm going to go organize something or I'm going to like, explore that or like, but I suddenly was like, wow, I think maybe this is what grounding is. I mean, I know what grounding is, but it was just that moment where I went, wow, that really came out of my mouth. I am actually going to sit here and just look out the window.
And you allowed that, like I think
Yeah.
it's so nice when you surrender to it, but yeah, fighting it um, was not fun. And it
Oh,
took me time to integrate it. And then also though, like obviously I talk about pleasure and it's like part of it can be that we just go away with people who that we enjoy, that we know through business connection, and that it's okay to not have an agenda because, over the first day, just putting together a food platter and we're chatting and then somebody says something and then you're talking about things. And so naturally, you're kind of going to get realizations and ahas. And we're not going to say, I'm not talking about work. Like, no,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it just came up. And out of it for me came that I had said in April when I was there for a writing author's retreat that I was going to do. Um, my next book would be my retreat book, which is absolutely coming.
Mm.
But then when I'd also sort of planted the seed of my cousin's book, who is 102, and I wanted to write that. But once I was with you all, I was like, this is urgent. This is
Mm.
actually urgent. He's 102, and that was
Yeah.
July. And it was like, I'm seeing him in August, and I have this opportunity to capture this content. And in talking about it to you all, and you were also interested, which is lovely, and
Mm.
a lot of people have been, but then to have somebody who actually works in the book industry and knows
Mm.
it, and to, thank you for letting me flesh things out.
Mm.
But then we sort of also planted the seed that potentially I would bring you out of editing
Yeah.
retirement. It's like, can I just
That's
let
right.
it
That's
out?
right. Yes, I call it I'm now calling it a soft retirement. I was like, no, I don't edit anymore. And then
I was like,
yeah,
oh.
And then,
Oh,
there are the books that you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I want to thank you for that because A Life of Magic is, well, it's a magical book and it did speak to me and it was a pleasure to edit. And for me, editing had become more of a chore and more of a have to instead of a get to. And I just really, really, really loved that. I got to do that because it felt good rather than, oh gosh, one eye on the bank account and all that stuff. It's like, no, this one I actually am doing because it speaks to me in some way. And I really just adored that. And I did, I was also grateful for the opportunity at the retreat because I do all my work online with people. So I run online circles, I run online like writers groups and creativity groups and all of that. And to be able to just for yourself, and I think there was one other retreat member there at the time, and I'm calling it a retreat because it felt that way. But I did run like one of the visualizations that I do with my clients kind of online. I ran that in person for us. And I just remember, going, oh, this just feels so nice to do it in person and just have that visioning process. It was a visioning guided visualization on visioning your book and connecting with the energy of your book. And I do, yeah, I'm just very grateful I got to do that as well.
well, and I think I did choose to focus on Cuzzy's book for
Mm.
that, but
Yes,
it was
I remember you
also,
did. Yeah.
yeah, there is a special energy when you are together. And absolutely, I call it a private retreat. So,
Mm.
and I was like, I actually want more of this. The problem
Mm.
I realized was that, so for me next year, I'm committing to only running two retreats through my business. Well, I say two, one is a two-parter, so it could be three, but at two separate times of the year, that's it. Because this year I added in another one and then another one and then it is hard, to pick that up. But I had a moment where I went, I just want to get together all the people that I love spending time with, and that could be the retreat. And so I sent the invitation. However, the thing is that I chose the location, I chose the date, and then said, come on this. As opposed to
Yeah.
like, if I want to go on a retreat and, we could totally get our group of four together or
Mm.
open that up to a few more people, then it's actually coming and saying, I'd really love to spend some time with you. I have some ideas about places because I always do. What dates work for you? Where can we go
Yeah.
together?
No.
How can we co-create this together? Like, if I truly want those people to come, then
Mm.
we should
Yeah,
create
yeah.
that together. And I
Yeah.
was like, yes, please, more of this. So,
Mm.
no to running more formal retreats that I have to sell spots to, but totally open to more
Mm.
private retreats that do come around organically and go, we've got a few days here. It can be
Yeah.
just 2 nights, can be such a
Mm.
refresher. Got 2 nights, let's get together in a lovely place and just be, no real agenda. And if
So
somebody feels
much.
called,
Yeah.
I'd love to do a visualization for everybody.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
an
Yeah.
intention setting, just bring
Yeah.
those
And we
things
had the
in.
bonfire, that was gorgeous.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous. We had the bonfire where we were letting things go, and taking a leaf and naming it and letting things go, naming it whatever we were letting go and putting it in the fire. That was gorgeous as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of thing would be beautiful. But yeah, you're right. It's a little more consultative in that way.
Yeah, and just that, I think something that came out of the Rose Farm as well is that
Mm.
not everything has to be monetized. And so,
Mm.
yes, there's a cost to things, but
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
okay. And I've just had my end of year celebrations, and it's, they're in the group in the black by $100, but it was like, it doesn't have to be a hugely profitable thing because it's meant to be a shared. Like, I can't run things, you can't run things repetitively at a loss, but it is
No.
okay that maybe bringing people together is
Yeah.
just, you can just cover things because it's about what
Mm.
comes after. And
Yeah.
obviously, between
Yeah.
July, we are talking on the 16th of December. A Life of Magic is not only a finished manuscript, it is with the publisher. It's about to be printed into a sample, and the
Hmm.
audiobook has been recorded. So it is
That is
finished.
blisteringly fast. Like that is so quick. I was like, well, I do have space because I'd finished up with a couple of one-on-one clients. So I was like, I do have space. And you sort of gave me the dates, and then I looked at the calendar because I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I looked at the calendar and I was like, that is 3 weeks. I was like, wow, yep, I do have space. But yeah, ordinarily, if your listeners don't know, books take like 18 months, like
Yep.
from when you give a finished manuscript to an editor
Yep.
and it goes through a couple of rounds of edits and then it goes to a publisher and then you get a book in your hand, that timeline is like normally 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
You might get it down to 6 to 9 months, but to do it in a very short span of weeks, like I think I got the manuscript at the beginning of November. So that's like we are 6 weeks. No, October. I got it in October. So that is like 10 weeks.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
Unbelievably quick. So that's just such a great sort of testament to your work ethic as well. And I know that sort of there were some late nights in there. There were some very early mornings working into the night and into the early morning and all of that stuff. But I think that when you look at it as a season of work, so, it's okay to really push it for a little while, because
Yep.
there's such a great goal involved. Like, I feel like I got to know your cousin Bill while I was editing that book. And I can understand why you're like, no, I want a book in my hands so I can give it to him and he can see it and, see that appreciation and love you have for him
Yeah.
in that book.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Like it was a short, sharp bit of hard work, but, you know, worth it, I think.
Well, and I think every book has its challenge. I think
Mm,
every book has its challenge, and you can't prepare for what that would be. I think for me, the first time, what was nice about working with you was I did have a challenge with an editor situation my first time, but it led me to working with an editor who made the work better. So I
yeah.
knew that bringing you in, I was like, what I'm pulling together, Tamara is just going to make it better. And I knew
Mm,
that you weren't going to remove me or remove him, like that our voices would stay strong.
yep.
Because I knew instinctively you're a good editor. I know that you've worked with someone that I admire and
Yep.
trust, who knows that you're a very good editor. And so
Mm.
I was able to trust the process. I think at some points I said potentially slightly lazy because I was like, here's the stuff. Um,
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. Like, I think all of the stuff that you were like, oh, I didn't clean it up. I'm like, that's okay. There's a whole lot in here that can be found with like the find function. And
mhm.
it's not a ballpark find and replace because if you do that one time and there was a little thing I'm thinking about now where a book was going from the UK to the US.
Mm,
And so someone tried to kind of bypass the editing process and they were trying to Americanize the words. And rather than like they just all the mentions of pants went to be trousers. Okay, so it was going the other way around. It was going from the US to the UK. And so they did a find and replace for pants to replace it with trousers. And the book ended up being published with, instead of the word occupants, the word occutrousers all the way through it. Um, and I'm like, this is why you can't just do that. So yeah, believe me, your manuscript was absolutely fine. We just edited it, that's all. And I think one of the things I'm really passionate about in both when I was editing regularly and now in my work with clients is actually really helping people strengthen their voice and really being careful about keeping that unique feature.
mm,
So, when there are the bits in the book where you're speaking and it is you speaking, and because I'm familiar with you and I'd spent time with you, you know, I could be like, yes, this is Emma and this is her voice. And then the bits where it's your cousin Bill telling his story, there's a particular way that he speaks, and it's quite, yeah, there's just a way there. Our beautiful elderly people have a way of speaking. And so keeping that in was really important. And I find that with clients I work with all the time as well. They're often like, oh God, I feel like I should like speak properly. And I'm like, please write how you speak. Don't write in some mythological kind of way that you think you should,
Yeah.
because you won't be able to keep it up. Firstly, your book's going to be really uneven. And at some point you'll get into flow and suddenly you'll sound like your real self and then it won't fit. And, it's best just to start off being yourself on the page, which can be really hard. I have a fair few clients who work corporate jobs and they
Mm.
find it really hard to write in any other way because they've written corporate for years, corporate reports, all that stuff. And that's great. It is one style of writing, but really excavating your own voice and your own inner kind of expression is so important. And so many, you know, baby editors, I think people
Mm.
on their beginning, I called myself a baby editor when I first started, and I was forever messaging like more experienced editors and asking them questions. And I'm like, I'm just a baby editor. I've got a question. And they're like, that is actually, firstly, really cute. And secondly, I don't think you're a baby. I'm like, I promise in this situation I am. But yeah, it was always about voice. And there's a lot of polarizing opinion about, no, if you're going to write literary stuff, you need to sound literary. And it's like, yeah, I have strong opinions on this. I could go on forever. So
No, no,
anyway.
I think I really like, and you know what was great with this one, which was a difference, is I always knew my other book, my first book, The Art of Pleasure, would be an audiobook, but just through circumstance. And although that was a 12-month process, it was still quite intensified and
Mm.
the timeline was not well planned out. And knowing now how that timeline works is so helpful. And sort of you have to go through it to really experience it. So the project management side of it, I think I learned so much from a book, but this time we were doing the audiobook at the time of the manuscript, and actually even with the view that I will actually go and change some of the bits in the book, because when we were recording it out loud, you're like, oh, that bit doesn't, this didn't make sense, or oh, I've missed this, or oh, because trying to read, we're going back and forth and jumping all around, trying to read 256 pages, it's a lot, and
It's a lot.
you'll just miss, somebody will miss some, like, and or we could have read the same thing 17 times, and it just takes that one person to go, do you mean this? And you're like, oh, yes, I do. And as well, we use names interchangeably as well. There were things like that. But anywho, the opportunity to read it out loud, and what was challenging for me and so interesting about that voice was the producer was a bit worried about me because I was going to be reading the notes from other people. So we had a narrator for Bill, my cousin, and then we had a me reading all these different people's notes and then my own voice. And I really stumbled and struggled. And even my mum and dad, who have a good writing style and good, I know their voice, in a way, sometimes the problem was I knew their voice. So I'm trying not to do a voice. I was trying to read it kind of and then not sound like me, but read as my
Yeah.
neutral voice, I guess. And so
Mm.
then I'd get to my bit and I go, ah, and I could read because it's my rhythm. And they've said that that's happened before where they've had a narrator reading and then they've said, oh, the voice changes here. Turns out, like there were like a whole chapter where they were like, it just sounds different rhythm, something.
Mm.
I'm reading the words, but it doesn't feel like it's coming. And I thought I had the voice. Anyway, they're like, it's so weird. Turns out like the chapter was plagiarized. So like, you know,
Wow.
that's happened. And
That's
they just said,
amazing.
if I were just doing the voice narrating one person, they said you would find it and then you'd know it and you'd go with it. But the fact that I
Mm.
had to read all these different sections and it was so arduous. So to read in
Mm.
that is challenging. So yes, to write as somebody else
Mm.
or write in a voice that you don't have would also be very challenging. So yeah, the more, and unfortunately my flow tended to come at 1:30 or 2 in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so like I just find that fascinating that that plagiarized chapter that you were talking about. I'm just going to go back and revisit that. Just wasn't sounding right in the recordings, and that's just fascinating because it just shows how much our own self and our own essence and our own kind of personality and energy goes into our writing. And so when you do write with your authentic voice, it is obvious
Yes.
when it's not. Um, and yeah, I guess that's just what I work to cultivate with my clients. Like we do, and it's less overt than, okay, try and write in your authentic voice. It's like, it's more that we write and we write our books, and I write my books alongside them in that container that I've created. And it's that witnessing and acceptance of everybody over time that
Mm.
actually fosters that voice coming out and that safety, because you really need a feeling of safety in order to be able to express yourself with an authenticity. And if you've got one eye on a possibly judgmental audience, which the world at large is, having those containers where you can actually you're going to be seen for who you are. You're going to be accepted. That is actually a really vital part of expression and learning to stand strong in your own voice. So that's kind of where I come from in that.
I think you pointed to something too there where there is definitely a block, and I know it happened with both of the books where you are thinking of a few people in particular
Mhm.
that are going to potentially read and have problem with something. And for me in this book was actually interesting because it's so I'm the author, but it's my cousin's story. And the way we
Yeah.
ended up choosing to write it originally was going to say co-author. I still call myself the co-author, but ultimately being an author isn't just tappy tappy typey writing the page. You're actually like holding the vision, and you're bringing this thing together, and the decisions about the cover and the decisions about font and all those sorts of things, that the layout, the reader experience, that's all part of your job as the author as well, and having a team who can help guide you on that. So you are really a project manager, and part of it, our work together. And I want to ask you about, I guess, that coaching side of things, because I had trouble a few times of being like, it's not my book, and
Mm.
wanting to be a good steward of that, but then also having this voice being like, thinking of a few of Kazi's people being like, because I do talk in the book and I do act as a narrator or as a guide, or part of the book is our relationship and sharing this across generations. So then I would be like, is it too much me? Is it
Mm.
too much of my voice? And it's hearing somebody almost going, oh, Emma, we don't want to hear, that's enough of you. We want to hear more of him. Uh,
Yeah.
but there were times where and it was great again doing the audiobook. It's like where that slotted in well, of just being like, just bridging gaps or reminding the audience or helping them come along on the story. And I needed that support because I was getting in my head about that.
Yeah. And that is such a good point because humans are just so human. Like we trip ourselves up all the time. Our thoughts go round and round in circles and then they get all tangled up and then we end up falling over our own feet. And, it's like a lot of what I do is just talking through things like that with people. And then by the end of the conversation, they're like, oh, so I guess I just write it. And it's like, yeah, yeah, you do. And so we kind of get to that conclusion, but it's in that conversation that somehow the alchemy happens. Like with A Life of Magic, your Cuzzy Bill book, I remember those conversations and you're sort of going, oh, is there too much me? There needs to be a few more bits. Like there both needs to be more and less me, you know? And it's like, well, look, I think as we go, we can find that nuance and we can find the balance. Because you're right, there were bits where it was really helpful to have more from you saying, by the way, I'm just going to, stick my oar in here and say, as a preface to this, this is what had been going on, and I heard about this from Bill at this point, and now I'll let you tell you about it.
Mm.
So it was kind of this nice bridge between bits of his life where there might have been gaps, and you don't want your reader in any book falling down a gap, because if you think of a book and writing a book as taking your reader by the hand at the beginning, and saying, come with me, I'm going to tell you a story, or
Mm.
I'm going to show you something, you know. And I promise you it's so interesting. And, there's also a secret at the end. And so you kind of have to hook them. And I'll tell you about that secret at the end. But in the meantime, this is where we're starting. And you have to take them by the hand. And when there are gaps in the book, it's like you let go of their hand and they just kind of go, oh, and then they see a squirrel or a side quest and they're off.
What
And
they
they
put
will
it
put your book
down.
down. They
Mm.
will put the book
And never
down.
come
That's the
back.
point at which they put the book down. And then life happens. Your book is gone by the wayside. So it is about keeping that connection with the reader. And I really like that. I'm waving my hands around here. I really like that holding their hand metaphor because you do need to keep hold of their hand and keep walking through that book and through that story and keep it moving so that their interest stays. And that's really what we were trying to balance in A Life of Magic. It was, you know, Bill tells a good story, but then, as I was saying earlier, our beautiful elderly people and their stories, they can get repetitive, or they cut off at a certain point and they just jump to the next one. And so
Mm.
there are gaps in those tellings, and that's where your voice came in to just guide the reader to the next one, and
Mm.
again and again. So yeah, I think that was a really valuable thing to have in there.
We also had a complexity in that some of the things, and this is something interesting for memoir.
Mm.
I think something great that I will preface at the start of any of my book, because you were saying before about people feel like they need to write in a literary way, is
Yeah.
that I just say I don't. My books are not typical. So
Mm.
yes, they're meant to fit into a genre. So there's a memoir, but my first book is part business, part memoir, or it's a my my mentor for that book said how to with heart, and it was like
Oh, I
lovely,
love that. Yes,
and
yes,
then
yes.
it straddles travel, business, entrepreneurship, personal development, and
Well,
so then
it kind of embodies that pleasure that is you,
yeah, looking at the
that's
category on Amazon, pleasure, please.
pleasure books.
The pleasure books. I love that. But, then this one, it's like, well, it's not a typical memoir because,
Mhm.
and actually, it was really nice. A couple of people talking early on, and my totally not biased dad was like, doesn't like biography and doesn't like memoir because it is. Hit start at the beginning and I'll just tell you my whole life, which is not true. A
Mm.
well-written memoir doesn't do
Yeah,
that. It
yeah.
does, but that's the belief is that you just go,
Mm.
I started as a baby and then I went here and then I went there. And that was actually impossible to do because A, like you said, he doesn't tell stories like that,
Yeah.
trying to weave all that together. But also he did a couple of things like Badger Booster Days for 65 years. And he did the Indy 500 for 50 years. So
Yeah.
we're not going to just come in and go, and then I went back to Indy. And
Yeah.
then I did Badger Booster Day again.
And
And
the
then I did
next
this job
year.
again. It's like it kind of happened in chunks or
Mm.
like not chapters of his life because it was like it's like this was a part of his life and that flowed over 50 years and then there was this part of his life that happened over 4 years and then there was this part of his life
Mm.
and so we had to do that and then my voice come back in and going, I know we took a detour, but we're going to
Yeah.
come back to the timeline now
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
find that balance of like holding their hand without being like babying them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more just, letting people know what's going on. It's just good communication is
Yeah.
what it comes down to. And I do love that there are those chunks of book where it's like, okay, you know, Bill is now like he's been introduced to the Indy 500, and we're going to just tell you all of the amazing things that happened with him at the Indy 500 because otherwise we're going to chop back and forwards for like 50 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like there's also a section I know where he talks about all the famous people that he's met. Some of them connected with the Indy 500, but some not. And so we just put all the famous people in one spot because otherwise you would really be chopping and changing all the time. And, it made more sense because I remember trying at one point, I was like, what if I put those in chronological order throughout the thing? Tried it and was like, this is really crap. This is not a good idea. This is a
Mm.
really bad idea.
Which is great for people to know that, like, and that's what was hard because I sent him a part and he was like, oh, but it's finished because I also had all the in there already, like the acknowledgements and I tend to do
Mm.
this. I write the acknowledgements first, or like the last chapter first, or
Yeah.
because I know how it's going to finish, or I don't know, there's this bit, but
Mm.
it's like playing Jenga, isn't it? Or I think of that movie, Minority Report, which was a future
Yeah.
movie, and Tom Cruise was wearing these special gloves, and he was able to move images
Mm.
around with his fingers. And I was like, that's what I feel like the book is like. You just pull all the content into a big bucket, and then you'll,
You
yeah.
move it around until it clicks.
And it's like
Absolutely.
do the post-its, right? Like a storyboard or a post-it. And it's
Hmm.
like that. I'm not as a physical person, but I understand how that would
Hmm.
work. I sort of do it, yes, like mentally. I'm doing it,
Yeah,
or I'm
yeah,
doing it
yeah.
with the chunks of the word. And so there's that part where it does all just, and Kerry did this Lego clicking into place on one of her audios, and it gives
Mm.
that point where it all just starts to click into place.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to know that it's going to be finished, because there is a point where you're
Mm.
like, with all these pieces going to
Yeah,
come together.
that's right. Yeah, it's usually about the 7/8 finished mark where you're just like, uh, I, I don't know how this is going to work. It's I often use birthing analogies with book writing as well because I actually, in a previous career, used to be a doula. So I trained as a doula. And there's always the point at about 7 or 8 centimeters where a birthing person will just go, I can't do this anymore. I've actually had enough. If they're at a birthing center or hospital, they go, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go home. I've had enough. I've actually had enough. Had enough. One person I supported was like, at that point, suddenly, like, had been really internal and really like focused. And it is a hormonal change as well. So suddenly got this kind of awareness and went, I have to go shopping. And we were like, I don't think you're going shopping. Just a little heads up here. You're not going shopping. You're having a baby. Like you're going to have a baby very soon. But when I started working with authors, I noticed that it was about the sort of 7/8. It's not 3/4, but it's about 7/8 of the way there will suddenly be a new idea or there will be vast overwhelm. So the new idea is very shiny and it's like, oh, but I'll be able to write that. It won't be any trouble at all. I'll go do that. Or this is too overwhelming. I can't possibly do it. It's too big a project. And it's like, you are so close. I promise you're having a book soon. Like
You will have your book. Yeah.
you're
And you
going to
have
have your book
to
soon.
have the editor. And that happened with me. It was an external thing. It was a life crisis with the
Mm,
first one. And we had a life crisis with this. My
yep.
cousin Bill, we found out before we started editing
Yes.
uh,
Just before, I think.
that he has colon
Yeah.
cancer.
Mm,
So he's probably had it for at least 2 years. He's been suffering in sort of a very discreet way.
mm,
Um, as that generation does. And but also the hospital finally did a CAT scan and found it. And so
mm.
it ended up, that was part of the thing, was that I
Yeah.
needed to get this manuscript to him before he goes and has, well, actually we needed to ask him questions because we were still asking
Mm.
questions. We had a lot of the material, but still clarifying things because it was a really serious reality that he was having surgery. No, they had
At
never operated.
102,
Yeah,
like, good Lord.
never operated on a 102-year-old. And you're like, no shit, because you're 102. So
Yeah.
medical marvel. And that he may not wake up. And I was like, this is the time to ask. We need to get
Mm.
any information out of him. And also to then have that thing of like, um, having his trust that we were going to do it justice, and that
Mm.
we were so I wanted him to read some parts of it. And he always says, there's those, like, one thing was that we hadn't changed yet that we did end up changing. It was like uncle to grandfather, but it was important detail, but it's like it's
Mm.
just a word change. So we'll just change the
Yeah,
word. So
yeah.
I got him to go through some stuff that he had piles of paper printed in large font. This
Oh.
friend working with him, reading through things over the phone, recording the call, going through and clarifying, and really finicky about things. And then
Mm.
got through all the questions, and I'm just like trying to get the answers, like,
Yeah.
great, stay on the point, got to get the answers. And I
Yeah.
thought, so do you like it? And he's like, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, I love it. It's wonderful. Yes. And I just asked him a couple of times about, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And that was the thing, was like, just to, if he didn't get to see it, that he had given his blessing.
Trust and blessing. Yeah.
So we were dealing
Yeah.
with a very, and last year my first book was that my nephew passed away through the process.
Mm,
So, it was the editor who kept me going at that time
hmm.
too and said, we are so close. Like,
Yeah.
and that thing of if you trust me, if you're happy to hand it
Hmm.
over now. And so then knowing with you that I was fully in trust. I was like, as long as I've got his approval, as long as you've got everything you
Yeah.
need, I trust that this is
Mm,
going to go ahead. So I'm very grateful for both those experiences to go. You hire a professional who is an
mm.
expert in their field,
Yep.
and you have that relationship, then trust them because they're going to take you through. And I just think, Tamara, like, I think having that coaching as well element and I think, I don't know, for you, of
Mm.
getting to work with an author before you get to them handing over a wad of paper, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of support you can give that can guide it, that instead of trying to unravel or undo
Hmm.
things, like,
Oh, yeah.
you can just go on a
Absolutely.
very
Hmm.
tangent that you didn't need. Like us having a quick check-in was able
Mm.
to speed along the
Yep.
process or keep it on path. So I think
Mm.
having that coaching element to the editing that not everyone would do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does, like on a very basic level, it basically saves people money down the track. Um, because if you just kind of start writing, and if you're lucky enough to keep writing and write your 60,000 words, which is your average book length thing, there's a very small chance that you will end up with something that you're happy with and that an editor will go, okay, well, this just needs some light work. But that is the most minuscule chance ever. Like, mostly you'll get a bit down the track, you get stuck because you don't know where you're going, or you've started somewhere in the middle and you kind of don't know where you're headed, or you like it's so easy to get lost. 60,000 words is a
A lot.
massive project. It's huge. Like, I think we all underestimate how big it is because, we're like, oh, I can write a blog post or I can,
Well,
you
it's because
know,
we have the book in a condensed format. But if you,
yeah.
like I said, print those pages out
Hmm.
and have them all out in front of you and try
Hmm.
to play Jenga
It's
with them,
massive.
highlight them.
It's massive. So, yeah. And I think I remember saying to you when we were together at the Rose Farm, um, you know, like over the years that I've worked, there are four formats for sort of these non-fiction books that we write, including memoir. And you're like, what, four? I was like, yeah, there's four. If you Google, non-fiction book templates, you'll get all kinds of things saying, 101 templates for your non-fiction book. There's all kinds of little things out there, but they all boil down to variations on four themes. And when I say that to people, they're like, nah, mine's going to be different. I'm like, I guarantee you it is not. But having that structure in mind as you begin and being able to slot your ideas into those structures actually gives you like stepping stones to get from point A at the start of the book to Z at the end of the book. Like, you just step your way through after that. And that can really help in terms of paying for an editor's time for structuring your book first before they even get to editing your paragraphs and sentences and words. Like, yeah, you can save yourself a lot of money doing that.
And just to have that support because it is a huge process. And so I just say, and if you're open to it, and I've said I would send people like to the coaches and mentors that I know, I
Mhm.
say
Yeah.
just your first point of call should be, and I have a couple of book recommendations on how to write a book, which
Mm.
sounds ridiculous,
Yeah.
reading a book on how to write a book, but that structuring element, then
Hmm.
and the process, because the writing it is one bit,
Yeah.
one, I'd say 30% of it in a way,
Hmm.
because I'd say the editing is separate to the writing, and that's another big chunk of it, and how the book changes. But then I just say go and get a coach and have an initial
Mm.
coaching session and a coach that
Yeah.
you might need to date a few as well.
Yeah,
Um,
100%, you know.
because
Hmm.
and date an editor too, like get a vibe
Yeah.
because you work very intensely with this person, and if your spidey senses and you're not
Mm.
gelling on both either side,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it could become a
100%.
very unpleasant
Yeah,
experience
100%.
for both.
Yeah, and I mean for me, I do a free half-hour chat with people in order to see if we're a good fit. Because, and I'm not shy about saying, do you know what? I actually think there's probably someone better for you out there. I'm not feeling it. I'm so sorry. I think you've got a great book, but I just have a sense that there's somebody better suited. So I don't actually mind saying that because it saves, like you're working, as you said, really intensely with this person. You're trusting them with your book baby. And, for myself, I don't take that trust lightly.
Mm.
And if I don't feel like I'm the best person for that job, there have been books where I'm like, do you know what? I really like you as a person, but this book is on a topic I actually like don't know much about. And I've got a large general knowledge because I've edited so many different books over 14, 15 years. It's kind of last count, it was over 55. I think it must be getting up to 60 now. So I do have a large general knowledge, but there are moments where I've said to people, look, I just don't have the specialized knowledge. I'm going to be asking a lot of stupid questions. I don't think there are stupid questions, but there are questions that would
Bother you.
someone with the
Mm.
specialized knowledge would not be spending so much time asking
Hmm.
questions like that. So I'm like, you will actually get more bang for your buck from someone who's a bit more specialized in that area. And that's been for kind of a political science book. I'm big on history, but I'm not huge on the politics of history. So that kind of got a bit much. And, I do have a lot of scientific kind of knowledge, but not the very technical stuff. So I would have had to do several deep dives and go down a lot of rabbit holes and read a lot of, physics and stuff to be able to edit a particular
Yeah.
book. And I'm interested, but it would have taken time. And
No.
so for that person, they just need someone who's already got that knowledge.
And what you said it before was that you are at a point, which is such a wonderful point to decide, but also acknowledge that you're at a point where you can choose
Yeah.
and you do get to do work that you want to do.
Mm.
And yeah, I'd just love to hear a little bit more about, we've just had had my darling son here today, and did it screaming his if it leaving. So we're very different seasons with my 4-year-old.
Very
Got
different seasons.
children,
Yeah.
you've got a husband, you've got
Hmm.
family. Like what does life look like in this kind of next season of
Hmm.
work and life?
Yeah, yeah. That is such a good question, and I've actually been asking myself that recently because years ago, my husband and I have both run our own businesses from home since about 2011 or so. Me, 2011. He started about 2009, I think. So, and we made that choice because we live about an hour out of Melbourne. And the commute via public transport for him to work his corporate job, he's an engineer, it was an hour and a half each way. So that's 3 hours a day.
Mm.
And yeah, at some point we both went, nope, this isn't actually going to work. So we decided to build a home office, start our own companies, do our own thing. And as people saw us do that, it was kind of before working from home was really a thing. And so people were like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. And I was like, we're not lucky. We're making choices. And yes, we're privileged. Like it comes from a place of privilege of having work that we can do from home. But it's also choosing to do work that we could do from home. So,
Choice, yeah. Mm.
very privileged in a lot of ways to have the possibility of doing that. But also making choices and going, this is actually going to serve us better. So for me, I now live on 2 acres in a beautiful spot. For me, I'm like, okay, how does my life and work fit into this now? Because I am in a spot I really love. I love where I live. My office is separate to the house, so I come out here
Mm.
past the chickens and the fruit trees and the veggie patches and the dog occasionally decides he's going to be an office dog and he comes in here with me. And I am flexy. So this next bit of time, I have favourite family up in far north Queensland. I'll probably go up there every now and again throughout the year to visit, and I will take my laptop for those ones because they work. So we're going to spend time together when they're not at work. And yeah, there's a little more travel coming up. There's some, a couple of overseas trips that I want to take, both to see family and also just for me. And for me, it's really a focusing in now on, okay, I've done the treading water
Mm.
because a lot of the school years felt like treading water for me. As like I'm not the main breadwinner, and I was we did openly talk about, okay, well, who's got the most earning power at the moment, and all of that. So we did have those discussions, and so I earn, but I was also in charge of a lot of the mental load,
Yeah.
and that does actually take it out of your capacity to, you know,
Be creative.
be creative and do other things. So for me, it's a matter of, I've got a few books in the queue that are queued up. There's a manuscript that I've got out being shipped around publishers at the moment. It's exciting times, and yeah, the ideas just keep coming. So for me, it's about, okay, great, let's pick up this writing career where I left it a while back, and yeah, it's very exciting. Breathe new life into that. I've got space for more clients. I've got space for more me, which is just lovely.
Yeah.
Just lovely.
I love it. And I love the sound of the pleasure trip up funnel. That's perfect.
I
Drinking
know,
away
right?
some of
I
that
know.
pleasure. I
It's
love
just
it.
such a lovely home away from home for me. It's one of my, familiar places that I go, and I'm like, there's my favorite shop again. And I drop into all the places I love.
But people don't think about that. And like sometimes I feel like they think of travel or leisure and they think of like it has to be, going to Fiji or going on, a European adventure. And it's like sometimes the best trips and the most restorative trips are to places that you've loved,
Mm,
places that you've been before, and places where it's easeful. And I just think for me, it's just looking out a different window. And,
yeah,
the luxury of sitting on a couch and looking out the window and not having to
yeah,
do anything because,
right.
I sit down on the couch in my house, look out the window. I can do a little bit of that, but then, there's probably a little person
Oh,
who wants me or a cat who
or
wants
there's the
me or
list of all the things you need to do that's in
the
your head.
washing. Oh, that's right. I mean,
Yeah,
that I just
yeah.
close my blinkers on. But,
Mm,
so getting to just live a normal life somewhere else.
elsewhere. I love that. Yeah, like when I go to Far North Queensland, I stay in my sister-in-law's spare room. And, she's always like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're not going out and doing enough for you. And I'm like, I'm somewhere different. I am perfectly happy
Yeah.
hanging out here on the couch with you after work. Like,
Yeah.
not a problem. I'm looking out the window at a tropical view. Like, it's brilliant. And during the day, I do some work, but I also wander down the street to, like, through this amazing rainforest to, like, the local cafe. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, so easily pleased. I'm like, yeah, it's just familiar and lovely. That's
Yeah.
all.
And get to, just yes, be participating in someone else's and life. And I wanted to, we will have to wrap up soon, but I
Oh,
could
yes.
talk to you forever. But and I hate to make this such a short one, but you also just casually ran a literary festival this year.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Like when you do your like 2025 reflections and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
didn't do anything. Oh, I guess
Oh
I could do
yeah, oh
something. I
yeah.
did
It
that.
was a bit
Oh
of an
yeah.
uneventful year, really. No, no. I was on the organising committee for the very first Dandenong Ranges Literary Festival, which is my local area, and this amazing woman, Marion, who is our chair, just had this idea. Oh, it'll be 20 months ago now. Just popped it in a local group and said, "Why don't we have a literary festival?" And everyone said, "Oh, great idea. Well, we'll meet with you if you want." And it just we just took it from there. So yeah, it was amazing. We just ran it in October 2025, and that was our first one. And we had over 30 authors come to take part in panels and workshops, and a keynote by Hannah Kent, whose novel Burial Rites 10 years ago won a whole heap of awards. That was her first novel, and she just published her fourth, which is Always Home, Always Homesick. So she gave
Mm.
our keynote speech and was just an all-round lovely person to have kind of as our first keynote. And yeah, we were blown away by how well the festival was received, and just the feedback on the day and afterwards has just been amazing. And, we didn't expect it to take off in quite the way it did, but obviously it's, something that the local community is really excited about and wants to support. So,
Well, the area
yeah,
suits it. It's very dreamy. You're up in
yeah,
the sort of the hills and the trees,
hmm
and it's a very lovely area. It's an area that
yeah,
people like to visit anyway.
that's
And you
right.
are far enough
Yeah.
away from Melbourne that to just, there's things on there, but
Mm,
it's nice to have something that's for your area. And I'm
yeah.
gutted because I had tickets and
I
I did have
know.
a big life crisis happen, and
Mm.
you very gracious. And supportive of my not being able to make it. But
Yeah,
I'm
that
thrilled
was
that it was a
such a
success.
shame. It was
There will
such a
be
shame,
more.
but at the same time, there were people coming from Sydney, and then there was you coming from further afield, and so when people were sort of saying, "Oh, so was it just local people?" I was like, "No, there are actually people coming from interstate to come to the festival."
Yeah.
And yeah, we just recently, got our grant for 2026 from the local council. And, they gave us more money this time. And I was at the event to celebrate the grants because when you go over a certain amount, they give you some sandwiches and some speeches. To receive the grants.
Huzzah.
So lucky, so lucky. And so I was talking to someone from the grants committee and they were like, well, so how did your first one go? And I told her and she was like, oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic. So, what's the plan? And I said, well, we do have a 10-year strategic plan. And she kind of did this double take and was like, that's unusual for a volunteer community group. And I was like, well, we're pretty serious about this being an ongoing thing and about eventually bringing tourism to the area and that kind of thing. And she was like, oh my God. And I said, well, the council does share their 20-year, 30-year plan on their website. Like, what do you think people are going to do with that? Like, we're going to try and fit in with that and,
Yeah.
make the area really vibrant and somewhere for people to come and enjoy cultural activities in such a beautiful setting. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. So it was,
Congratulations.
people are always surprised. They're like, the hills are just full of hippies and artists. And it's like, yes, but
No.
also we also have brains and plans and stuff. So
I
yeah,
love
thank
it.
you.
What a beautiful vision. No, I'm really excited for you and yeah, look forward to participating in the future
Oh, amazing.
and just, yeah, I totally well, obviously you don't really need a excuse for me to travel, but it is a beautiful part of the world to come to and look
Yeah.
forward to exploring more. So yeah,
Yay. Well,
ticks
we
all the
don't have to give
boxes.
you excuses, but we can give you reasons to come
Yes,
down.
that's nice. We like the reasons.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched on it before, but my final question is, how are you living a life you love now?
Ooh, that is just through decisions based on what's right for me. So, I don't do well in an office environment. I learnt that very early on. It just doesn't work for me. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to do something. And so just constantly coming back to the question of, what do I need? What do I want? What do I need? What do I want? What do I need?
Yeah,
Assessing what I'm doing and going, oh, why am I feeling uninspired? What do I need now?
yeah.
And just giving myself that so that I actually can function and work in a way that suits me. That's it. And, you know, sounds so simple when I say it like that.
But it should be, and it is, and it's not a 10-year strategic plan. It doesn't have to be
No,
something you submit to a council, it's
this is
your
true.
life. And then you get to reassess it. And I think the
Mm,
simpler, the where the live a life you love question comes from is that it's not a
mm,
point in time and it's not a success marker because it's not a goal and you can go
mm-mm.
tick, I've lived a life I love. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
am I living a life?
exactly.
It's a verb, like,
Exactly.
pleasuring
Yeah,
is a verb.
it's
It's a
yeah.
doing thing. And you can at any point say, actually, no.
Mm,
Even that quick checker of, am I doing what I want? No, I'm feeling resentment. This isn't
mm,
what I want. It
yeah.
doesn't mean you can stop that right that second.
No.
But you can go, okay, well, how can then I get closer to that feeling
Mm,
or get closer to that point
Yeah,
And it's not massive life changes, like occasionally,
that's
but
right.
often it's just little tweaks of going, oh,
So
remember.
much. Because for me, and I know, coming back to the mastermind again, for me, I have found that I need a lot of time just pottering around,
Mm,
unstructured time. And I work much better when I'm working if I have had enough unstructured time. And for me, pottering around is fiddling around in the garden, pruning something, weeding something, planting things, talking to the plants, that's what feeds my soul, really. And sometimes I can get really busy and I don't get enough of that time, and I will end up feeling really odd and dysregulated and like things aren't right. And so that's not a huge thing, but it has a huge impact on my effectiveness at my desk. So, yeah, making sure that I then reset and fit more of that in is really important. So, yeah,
more pottering, 2026, more pottering, people.
yeah,
So
the year of pottering. That's right.
when you're not pottering, and if we want to connect with you, how can we find you, Tamara?
Absolutely. So I do have a website. It's tamaraprotassow.com. I'm sure it will be in the show notes, so I don't have to spell that out. I am on all the platforms, Facebook and Insta as tamara.protassow.writes. That'll be in the thingamies as well, the show notes. On LinkedIn as Tamara Protassow, and yeah, generally just about the place like that. I think.
That's it. We'll look for you. And if you can't find her, then ask me and I'll point you in the right direction. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for today. And thank you for, well, um, I was in my podcast crying, but thank you for, you helped make a 16-year dream come true. And
Mm.
this is his legacy. This is his, I mean, some Oprah said it the other day, just, casually going to drop, when I was at
Yeah.
Oprah, um, the wise words of Oprah, but she said, your legacy, so the book is a legacy, and I do believe that, but the book is a legacy because of the lives it will touch. And
Mm.
all of our legacy is the lives that we've touched. And what this book does is bring together so many of those lives that have been touched. And the gift is that his magic gets to keep touching lives and growing because we have captured what could not be captured in any other format, I don't believe.
Mm.
Um, we've captured it in such a beautiful summary. Of
Mm.
course, there's always more to the story, but I think it gives a very good view of this life of magic. And thank you for bringing together this a life. Thank you.
Oh, I'm just so grateful to have been included and invited to be part of that, and to have been able to sort of step into that story. And I think I said to you a couple of times throughout the edit, I really feel like I'm getting to know your cousin Bill, and he's such a lovely man. It really came through in the book. And yeah, I just feel really grateful for, being asked to be part of that, being invited in, and, just that privilege of being trusted with a story. Um, I always find that with the books and the people I work with, it is a privilege to be trusted. So thank you too.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners. And yes, may you have a little bit of magic from this episode. Thank you for listening, lovely one. I hope this has inspired you to dream big and start creating a life you love today. If you love what you're hearing, don't forget to follow and rate on Spotify, and rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. It helps other awesome people find this podcast and get motivated and inspired as well. Want to stay connected? Come and join the Live a Life You Love group on Facebook, or connect with me on Instagram, emmalovell.au. The same as my website, but all the details are in the show notes, lovely. I'll see you next episode for more inspiration, motivation, and freedom seeking. Now go out there and live a life you love.